this. The thing we praise in our society is courage. Everybody sees an act of courage and saying, wow, that is just amazing.
Yeah.
But you cannot get to courage unless you're prepared to go through uncertainty and vulnerability.
Yeah.
So the two things that are negatives, uncertainty and vulnerability, are the two key things you've got to go through to get to courage.
Most definitely. And it's strange as well when it comes to the whole matter of fear, because fear is crippling in itself and it's very dangerous. And one of the best motivational quotes I've ever heard is pretty simple. So there was a gentleman who was speaking to a young entrepreneur, and the young entrepreneur told him that he's not motivated, and when he does get that momentary time of motivation, he feels like a sense of fear that people are judging him. And then the individual who he was speaking to looked in his eyes and just straight up told him, he said, look, you're going to die. At some point you're going to die. All the people that you're afraid of, all the people that are intimidating you, all the people that are holding you back, they're not going to care when you die. The girlfriend that you have now, if you pass away tomorrow, she's going to find another boyfriend within the next couple of weeks. So what is it truly that is preventing you from being the person you're supposed to be, or taking a risk and the opportunity that you're supposed to be taking? So fear is extremely crippling, it's dangerous. But how do you overcome it yourself? Do you think it was something that was innately in you, or was it...
No, it wasn't something that was innately in me. Because, my life, to a certain extent, in the early days, was driven by fear.
Yeah.
So fear does two things. It either keeps you where it's like you're the rabbits in the headlights, or it means that you're constantly, looking, looking over your head. You just, so both of those states are not good. And so it's about recognizing that fear was an important element, a part of our evolving as human beings, because,
Survival.
if there's a goddamn tiger running after you, you got to have something that then sort of gets the adrenaline to sort of go. And so fear, which would have been appropriate back in the day, is no longer appropriate in today's society.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like we have to recognize there's elements of our evolvement that's still with us that doesn't serve us well. And we have to put a lot of time and effort into keeping it at bay because it's no longer relevant in the society.
And it's acknowledging and noticing that it is there and actively working on it.
But the whole of our society is geared towards fear. You switch on the news, it's everything that you look at our society, whether that's the news, whether that's television, whether it's the news, it's all geared about fear.
Yeah.
Whether it's the banking system, every single thing of our modern day society is tapping to that one element of that human nature, which is fear. And that is what then cripples. Now, if you go to countries like India or any developing countries where death and the things that we fear is around you all the time, there's a great they're not as fearful as we are in the West. There is a far more, and that's why you find people in the West wanting to go there and live in those countries, because with death and misery around you all the time, people have a very positive approach to life. And that is because they put it into context. They have a much better context than we do. And I think that's part of what we have to sort of learn, is that our fear are created, and it's not only created within us, but it's stimulated by the society that we live in. And so you have to be able to shut yourself up from it. And don't listen to the shit. Don't listen to the shit. And there's so much of it out there. And then if you belong to that, if you listen to it, you'll then be trapped by it.
Most definitely. I mean, even something simple as starting off this podcast, because I'm only 11 episodes in, but just to get our first episode out there and clicking that initial button to send it out to the world, it took me ages to do it. I was sitting on the first episode for weeks on end, and my friend who I recorded the first episode with, he kept on calling me up saying, Francis, have you released it yet? Have you released it? I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. But I was just scared. And now looking back at it, after all the feedback I received when I initially started it, now looking back at it, I'm thinking, what was I really afraid of? Was it judgment? Was it other people's opinions that don't really matter? Was it what people were saying when I weren't even there to even take heed of whatever it is they were saying? But it was crippling nonetheless. But once I overcame that initial barrier, it felt good. Then I went into a different sphere now, wanting to then push it and elevate it to the next stage. But it's like hindsight is one of those things. Like if I knew...
What you just described is that, so you're at the state of fear, And some people at the state of fear would never press that button.
Yeah.
Something in you had to overcome that fear to
Most
press that
definitely.
button.
Yeah.
So that is what we have to recognize, is that fear never goes away. You've always got to overcome it.
Most
And you had
definitely.
the courage to overcome it. And
Yeah.
that's what it is that you'll never get to a state where you're not fearful. You'll always be in a state. We always will be in a state of fear. And what it is, we have to recognize we're always going to be challenged to overcome it.
Yeah.
And it's a daily battle that we have to understand, that, you know, we either allow it to take hold or we push it at bay.